All right, welcome back to another episode of the Psychopedia podcast. I'm your co-host, Tank Sinatra, here with my rebellious co-host.
Investigator Slater.
Tell me to do something and I'll move the planet.
Shut up. That was in high school.
Show me where to stand and I'll touch the railing.
That's where you were going with it.
I know. I had no idea where I was going. By the way, whatever, we did some painting. And there was a sign up that said, don't touch the railings. But it was up there for like a month.
Yeah.
And it was only for like 2 days. That is so indicative of who I am as a person.
Why not just take the sign down? But also,
why not?
I've been coming up to the studio twice a week, at least for the last month. Why didn't I take it down? Or question you about why it was still up. Instead, I just rubbed my hand on the railing like a crazy person just to make a point.
You probably thought someone else will do it. Or if it's not done, maybe it's not that big of a deal to come down. And you had...
like it's not my property.
You had bystander effect.
I think it was more...
I did.
Did you? No, for me, it was more like, I'm just going to touch it anyway.
Yeah, but you didn't take the paper down.
I know.
Oh.
Every time I saw it, I was like, watch this. Sign.
Yeah.
Rub.
As if the sign has a conscious... as if the sign is sentient.
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 No.
Yeah.
Sentient. It could be said either way. That's what we learned.
Yeah, I could also say sentient if I wanted.
Penchant.
Penchant. Okay, well, we're here to do an episode of True Crime. We're getting into part one of a two-parter from what I understand.
Yep.
News to me.
I know. I didn't want to tell you too early in advance because I didn't want you to worry about the heaviness of what I'm going to bring today. Usually two-parters are very heavy. Very deep.
But I've never not liked one.
True.
I've never not liked an episode we've ever done.
I think I still look at you like you're this rookie in the true crime game.
Wait till you hear what we're covering on Unhinged today.
Oh, yeah.
On Patreon.
I can't wait. Oh, my God.
Wait till we're plugged in.
Yeah. Nice.
Word. Very much so. So if this is your first time here, welcome. We're so happy to have you. If this is your 100th time here, welcome home.
Freak.
And if you haven't subscribed yet on Apple, Spotify, or YouTube, or wherever we do this thing, wherever you take us in, then please, please do so. Oh, boy.
Incredible.
Off to a rockin' start. Also, if you haven't checked it out yet, go check out our Tank's Good News podcast, which is up, and it's the joy of my life.
I know it is.
It really is.
It's a palate cleanser for Psychopedia. It is all good news cases. Very similar to the setup we have here at Psychopedia. I present actually 3 stories to Tank in one episode, but it's all positive.
And you find some stuff.
Yeah, but that's the idea. That's what's going to make it a captivating story versus a headline.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
I know. Headlines get people's attention, but once you're in, man, there's a lot to know. Mm-hmm. Or there's a lot to hear about how these things come to be.
Because like true crime, these are human beings involved.
Yes. There's always a story.
That's right.
So if you love us and you're not getting enough of what you want here, you can head on over to patreon.com/psychopediapod to get episodes of Unhinged, an episode of Slaterpedia a month, an episode of Tankopedia a month. There's a lot of episodes over there, a lot of content. So if you're looking for a fix, we got it.
Yes, we do.
We got a lot of it. On that note, I'm going to read off a couple of those Patreon.
Oh, yeah. Let's go.
And we got some doozies in there.
Sick.
We got some doozies. So we got Murder Cornstar.
Oh. But why corn? What's that from?
It's like unalive.
Oh, okay.
You can't say porn on the internet or it'll get, flagged. Hemoglobin.
Nice.
Kaylee Nyquist.
Hi, Kaylee.
It's a good name. Sounds like NyQuil. Anne Marie Hollerin.
Holla.
Hollerin. Holla at me. I've never said that in my entire life.
You just did.
It did not feel good.
Felt weird for me, too.
Kendra.
Kendra?
Just Kendra.
Love it. Do you know that when I was
last name.
Pregnant with my second son and we didn't know if it was a boy or a girl, so random, when we were talking about names, my dad suggested Kendra. How weird is that?
That's
name. Weird. It's a beautiful name, but my dad to come up with that?
Yeah, strange. To finish things off, pint-sized firecracker.
Yes! I'm feeling that one. Thank you for the nod.
think that's a nod to me, but that's okay. This one is all you.
I'm going to take credit for that one.
No, that's yours, 100%. My tidy tingles are spidering.
Okay. I see what you did there.
Now my shit is spidering.
I'm seeing it. I'm seeing you, person, and I'm appreciating it.
It's a good name. And you put a lot of effort into it. Or it just came to you in a flash. Either way, can I tell a quick story before we start?
Sure.
Okay, so I just want to say something to people who get mad at other people on the road or in social situations or whatever, because I got mad and then my heart was broken. So I'm driving my son to school and this person 2 cars behind us is just honking. We're in traffic. We're not going anywhere. Like they didn't stop. It wasn't like 10 honks or 20 honks. There was probably from the time I turned onto that street to the time I got to the school, 150 honks.
Jeez. Excessive,
So I'm in my mind, first I get mad, then I'm like, there's obviously something happening. Maybe they can't get through. They have
somebody's in labor in that car, right?
Exactly. So I pull into the parking lot of the school. This car now pulls in, and I was like, oh, what did not want it to be late or whatever? Oh my God. So I let my son out. I look in the rearview mirror on the driver's side, and I see this girl explode out of the car. Screaming.
Like a child? A student, I mean?
Student,
yeah.
I mean, just absolutely, she looked like she exploded out of the car. Like her energy was so frenetic that I was like, oh my God, this poor girl. And then my son said that the whole time she was walking in, she's like, nobody talk about my mom honking the horn. Like there was some serious, oh my God, I felt so bad for her.
Oh, the poor baby.
Apparently the mom is, has some things going on with her.
Yep.
Because I told the security guard, I was like, I don't want to get involved in anybody's business, but something's happening back there.
Yeah.
And you might want to check it out. He goes, no, we know.
Oh, that poor little girl.
How sad is that? I've been thinking about her nonstop.
Very sad.
I just want to help.
I know. Well, sounds like if the security guard's aware of the situation, maybe the school is. Yeah. And I'd like to think that they're helping in some way.
Yeah. My son, she gets some assistance, but
okay. Well, thanks for bringing us down. Appreciate that.
Aren't you about to bring us into the depths of hell?
Different way. Just a different way.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry. The point is, really, you never know what people are going through.
It is a good takeaway. It is a good reminder, especially for road rage people who are susceptible to that.
Yeah.
Raising my little pint-sized firecracker hand.
I was about to get out of the car.
Yeah.
I can't stand somebody honking behind me in traffic.
Yeah, but now you might think differently. You know what I mean? So it was probably a learning experience for you too.
Oh, big time. Yeah. All right. So without any further business.
Yeah.
Why don't we get into this week's case? Part 1.
Part 1. During the 1950s, so-called detective magazines were all the rage and dominated newsstands with macabre allure. These print publications featured crime fiction, true crime, and detective stories.
Oh, yeah.
People were captivated by the graphic, lurid covers that sensationalized shocking, real-life crimes by using staged, highly disturbing images. The covers often showed women in revealing clothing, bound and gagged, their faces frozen in exaggerated terror that created a visceral sense of danger, helplessness, pain, and trauma.
Really?
These unsettling images turned violence into spectacle and fed a voyeuristic audience while normalizing the objectification of women in dangerous, deadly situations.
And these images are in detective magazines, you said?
They're like called detective magazines. It was just like a true crime fiction, detective stories, advertising, stuff like that.
Noir genre?
Yeah. But on the cover, it would depict a woman like scantily clad.
Oh, so it was like an adult magazine.
It was an adult magazine for sure. This was not meant for children, but it wasn't like porn.
Yeah, but it wasn't
on
the shelves of Woolworths. I'll tell you that much.
No, but it was on newsstands. What the fuck is Woolworths?
It's something I know because I'm 2 years older than you.
Oh, old man, got it.
Yeah.
So these women, I mean, I've obviously seen what the magazines look like in my research, and it's like, because it's the 1950s, they very much look like pinups, you know what I mean? But they're like tied up, gagged, and they look terrified or in pain. So detective magazines have often been referred to as pornography for the sexual sadist, and for many years, they were among the most widely read categories of American magazines. However, as television became a dominant source of crime news, the popularity of detective magazines declined, and today they are virtually extinct. Yet, their impact was undeniable, particularly in helping to shape the modus operandi of one of America's earliest known serial killers, Harvey Glatman.
Harvey.
Under the pretense of being a professional photographer, Harvey placed ads to recruit women for these so-called crime scene reenactments meant for detective magazine covers. And this guise allowed him to lure countless unsuspecting, innocent women right into his trap.
Such a 50s name, by the way.
Harvey Glatman, I know.
Harvey Glatman?
I know.
Yeah.
And what he did to these poor women defies comprehension. This is the case of one of the first serial killers to ever be profiled by the FBI, Harvey Glatman, aka the Glamour Girl Slayer. Harvey Murray Glatman was born on December 10th, 1927, in the Bronx, New York, to his immigrant Jewish parents, Ophelia and Albert Glatman, a couple known for their decency, respectability, and tireless work ethic. 2 years into their marriage, they celebrated the arrival of their only child, Harvey. When Harvey turned 3, the family decided to leave behind the bustling streets and unrelenting pace of New York City for the open skies and fresh mountain air of Denver, Colorado, where Ophelia had some relatives. Eager to lie down roots and build a stable future, Ophelia and Albert poured their entire savings into opening a modest stationery shop, hopeful that their hard work would secure a comfortable life. For the first 3 years of Harvey's life, Ophelia described him as, and this is a quote, apparently healthy and normal. According to her, he showed none of the troubling traits that would later define his infamy. That said, Ophelia did say that Harvey had little to no interest in toys or playing, had a remarkably low attention span, and would inappropriately giggle and or cry. But as he entered toddlerhood, subtle yet deeply unsettling behaviors began to emerge.
Wait, he was giggling inappropriately as less than a toddler? How is that?
Like babies laugh, babies giggle.
I know, but inappropriately?
It would be at inappropriate, maybe I wasn't clear, at inappropriate times. So if you're trying to get a baby to laugh and he laughs, right, that's considered appropriate, normal. But if he's just belting out laughing, giggling out of nowhere, out of context with no reason, it's a sign of something maybe, or maybe not, but
Sign of an awesome kid.
it could be.
Yeah.
He's got some own thoughts going on in his head and it's entertaining, maybe.
Well, I was thinking if somebody's trying to make him laugh and he's just dead serious and then somebody falls down the stairs and he cracks up, that would be strange.
Right.
But still, I wouldn't attribute it to anything in a baby.
Well, it's like all of these cases. I don't think one thing in isolation is telling of anything.
You are painting a picture.
Okay. I like that. Ricasso. Just gave myself way too much credit.
No, I think it's due.
Thank you. Okay, so Ophelia said, aside from the weird moments of crying and laughing when he shouldn't technically have been doing either, he was apparently healthy and normal, except when he turned 3 and more troubling behavior started to emerge. Because according to Ophelia, Harvey did which of the following things at the tender age of 3?
Coming up hot and ready.
Pop quiz.
Pop quiz.
Poked his little finger inside the body of a dead mouse found in a wedge between the kitchen stove and wall.
Mm-hmm.
I call that one Dead Mouse 3.
I call that one grease that little fucker out of the wall.
B, tied a string around his penis, anchored the loose end in a drawer, and intentionally leaned back against it to inflict pain. C, secretly collected clumps of hair from his mother's hairbrush to create a small, hidden doll that he then abused. Ugh.
Are you kidding me?
Ugh.
That's the premise of Slackers with Jason Schwartzman,
what?
by the way.
No, it isn't.
I swear to God.
What?
Jason.
Are you shitting me?
No. He has a huge crush on this girl. He collects her hair, and he's starting to try and make a doll out of it. I can't. The fact that you've never seen that movie is baffling to me. With how you feel about Jason Schwartzman,
I know
it's like his best role.
Oh my God! Well, now I'm gonna have to see it.
It's so good. Wait, so hold on. Okay, so tie the thing around the penis,
the finger in the mouth, Dead Mouse 3.
Finger in the mouse, or the hair.
Yeah, and there's also another option.
Okay.
D, refused to eat meat unless he could watch where it came from, demanding to see the raw cuts and running his finger through the blood before meals.
B.
Yes. Yes. Really.
Tied a string to his penis and anchored it to a dresser and leaned back.
Yep. At 3 years old, he was inflicting this pain and pleasure on himself in a ritualistic manner.
Unrelated, I swear to God. But it did make me think of it, which I'm not okay with, but it is what it is. My younger son was losing a tooth the other day.
You did the string?
No, I pulled it out with pliers.
Oh, you freak. That's horrible.
He asked me he's like, do we have pliers?
Oh my God.
I was like, yeah, dude. Because it was so loose. And I get the motion of slamming the door. You just got to yank it out.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't like pull on it. I just put it on, grabbed, and pulled it out. And he was like, oh, that was nothing. I know.
Wow.
Yeah.
I have it's giving Little Shop of Horrors.
Yes.
Right now.
You know what? It was tweezers, actually. But still, I yanked it. I yanked it.
Listen, tweezers is actually somehow better. I'm not sure why, but it is.
Smaller.
Still, you're a freak. Okay. So while Ophelia dismissed this behavior as just a curious boy exploring and experimenting with his own genitalia, which exploring with your own genitalia at that age is not abnormal.
No.
It was the pain element.
Yeah.
And that he was deriving pleasure from it. That was a little alarming because it reveals a haunting glimpse into the psychological makeup of a mind already straying very far from the norm. Such a calculated act at such a young age suggests not merely curiosity, as Ophelia thought it was, but an early connection between pain and control, elements of sadomasochism that would become disturbingly prominent in his later life. It also, to me, raises deeply troubling questions. Was this behavior entirely self-initiated, or could it have been a response to external stimuli, abuse, or unseen trauma?
Sure.
Because by all available accounts, Harvey did not experience any known abuse, sexual or otherwise. Mm-hmm. That said, again, to me, the possibility is hard to completely dismiss because he was fixated on control, pain, and humiliation, and suggests to me that it could have stemmed from a profound and warped psychological imprint.
Who was saying he was not being abused? His parents?
They did take him to see a doctor as well, and the doctor also said, like, it's boys will be boys type of thing.
Interesting diagnosis.
But sadomasochism was not in the everyday vernacular, let's say, in the 50s.
Yeah.
So it was a little bit of a taboo subject. But looking at his behavior more broadly, the act of self-inflicting pain for the purpose of deriving pleasure demonstrates, at the very least, early and troubling detachment from the typical boundaries of self-preservation and a preoccupation with pain, both of which foreshadow the sadistic nature that would later define Harvey's crimes. While some may dismiss such behavior as a phase of exploration, as his parents did, its persistence and intensity suggest a mind that was beginning to fracture. During childhood, Harvey withdrew from others and avoided social interactions, particularly with girls. He often displayed nervousness, brooded quietly, and cast a suspicious demeanor, punctuated by frequent and intense temper tantrums. Harvey stood out amongst his peers due to having a weak eye and prominent jug ears. That's like the phrase for Harvey Glatman everywhere.
Jug ears?
Jug ears.
I don't even know what that means.
Like, just really, really big ears. Oh. I don't know why jug, though, but...
Exactly.
And it made him a frequent target for teasing and bullying.
So mean.
It is. I hate bullying. Additionally, Harvey developed nervous tics as well as a stutter, which we have observed time and time again with budding killers. We explored this topic in our coverage of serial killer Robert Hansen, right? The butcher baker, as well as Anthony Bakelin recently in A Spoonful of Incest.
Yeah.
And even Brian Lee Draper, an earlier case, one of the teenage perpetrators in the Scream murder that we covered.
Yeah.
Speech impediments like stuttering can often be linked to underlying emotional distress, particularly during formative years. Having a stutter does not inherently lead to homicidal tendencies. That's an obvious statement, but I did feel like I needed to point that out.
Yeah.
We have observed here at Psychopedia Central a possible correlation between, speech impediments and emotional issues, but there's no evidence to suggest, obviously, causation.
Well, I was going to say something. I don't even know if there's corollary evidence because we've done 100 and something episodes and there's been 4 that were
That's
stuttering.
True too.
But I also could see how a stutter would be a physical manifestation of a psychological state, just like jammed up.
Yeah.
And then the worse it gets, like the more jammed up you get, the worse the stutter is.
Mm-hmm.
and then people making fun of you for it on top of that, it just adds to the pressure of having to open your mouth and maybe not being able to say what
Pretty
you wanted
ironic.
to say.
I mean, nobody understands that more than I do.
Yeah.
In terms of wanting to say something, understanding how it should be said, but your mouth just does not cooperate.
It's not.
In terms of the actual act of tying string around his penis, according to Harvey, he always maintained a deep fascination with ropes, knots, and nooses. When he was 12, Harvey, who also was a Boy Scout, developed a penchant for autoerotic asphyxiation at 12 and got in the habit of placing a knotted rope around his neck, then running it through the bathtub drain or tying it to an overhead pipe and pulling it tight against his neck while he masturbated.
Oh, my God.
On one occasion, Ophelia and Albert noticed that their son's neck was swollen and rope burned, prompting them to consult with a family physician who indicated that Harvey would grow out of it. Although sadomasochistic themes of pleasurable suffering predate the term sadomasochism by centuries. This has been around forever.
Yeah.
Appearing in diverse historical and cultural contexts from ancient Dionysian, I said that weird, rituals to 18th century British brothels, from South Asian sex manuals to 19th century European academic art. It still was a topic that was not widely discussed or thoroughly studied in the 1950s.
The first time I learned about it was from the Aerosmith album Pump. You know what I'm talking about?
No.
That song. There's a song at the end. There was a line where he said, and I remember it vividly. If someone knows what it is, tell me. Masturbation with a noose. And I asked somebody what that meant, and they were like, "Oh,
Don't go there."
It's a thing you don't need to know about."
Well,
I was
right, you were
like,
obviously a kid.
I was a child.
Yeah. Listening to Aerosmith, pretty cool child.
Oh yeah.
I'll give you that.
Yeah, I have like a lot of nostalgia stored up from Aerosmith.
I have a little bit of nostalgia stored up for Aerosmith.
Yeah. Angel, What It Takes. Whew.
Pink.
The Ring.
So even though sadomasochism was not widely known about, Albert still did not believe that his son would simply grow out of his proclivities. Even worse, he feared that his son's behavior indicated that he might be gay, a notion that he just could not tolerate.
I'd rather have him die than be gay.
I mean, really.
It was, well, the progression is there. I mean, it's tying a string around your penis to tying a rope around your neck.
Yeah, he's
Where do you-
escalating and quick.
Yeah.
Quick. So in an attempt to scare Harvey into stopping, Albert warned him that continuing such actions would result in a severe case of acne.
Oh my God, this father is at his end. He doesn't know what to do.
And he was a little bit of a disciplinarian, not like your typical, we've done so many cases where the dad or mom, but usually the dad is like horrifically violent.
Yeah.
Either to the perpetrator we're studying or to the mother or whatever. Really wasn't the case here. He was a disciplinarian, but like normal. You know what I mean? Ophelia was a little bit overbearing. So he did have that dynamic, but not on a scale that would raise any flags.
Well, it's obvious just from those two sentences you just said that his father had no idea how to deal with him.
No.
I think he's gay.
And
If you don't stop, you're
you're gonna get acne.
Zits,
Yeah.
I think.
Didn't do anything to deter
I feel
him.
bad for the dad because he didn't know how to help him. He was like totally lost.
As a parent, you start to see things through a different lens, right?
Yeah.
I have become so much less judgmental of people who are in public with kids who are having a temper tantrum or being, bratty or whatever it is. Like when I was younger and I would see that, it'd be like, oh, control your kid.
Yeah.
I'm like almost embarrassed to think I had those thoughts. Now I'm like, Hunger Games, I'm like,
You need anything?
I'm like, I'm with you. I feel you. Exactly. So it didn't do anything to deter Harvey because Harvey Glatman from an early age was, as crime historian Harold Schechter put it, a prodigy of perversion, which might be the name of this case. I don't know. This episode.
I believe so.
As one who hid behind an unassuming, nerdy facade with his prominent nose, large ears, and thick, oversized, horn-rimmed glasses, Harvey could have easily passed as Milhouse from The Simpsons. Yet beneath that almost cartoonishly nerdy exterior lie one of the most disturbingly deviant minds in the history of American serial killers. And a highly intelligent one at that, as Harvey Glatman had an IQ of 130.
Sounds like a beluga.
Oh, yeah, the genius whale. Pop quiz. Of the serial killers who have been caught, what is the average IQ?
Okay.
A, 89, B, 109, C, 120.
89, 109, 120. I'm gonna just guess because I could make a case for any of them
Okay.
and say 109.
Very good. 2 for 2.
Well, 109 is the average of 89 and 120.
Oh, shit. You wicked smart.
So I got an average IQ of, and I have an average IQ of 140.
That was perfect.
Of 12.
So this actually aligns closely with the average IQ of the general population.
Yes.
And my point is this, and we've talked about this before too. Killers in general, like the media loves to portray them as evil geniuses. In this case, okay, we'll give you Harvey Glatman, IQ of 130. Typically, not so sharp. I mean, average, great, or below.
Yeah. How smart could you be?
That's what you always say when we have this conversation. How smart could you be if you can't,
Because IQ
if you're out in the world doing what you're doing?
IQ is all problem solving.
Yeah.
So you're not that great at solving problems.
Yeah, I guess not.
In a healthy way.
Creating them.
Yes.
As a young preteen and early teenager, Harvey's depraved tendencies graduated from his right hand and a knotted rope to much darker and much more dangerous expressions of his twisted desires. He'd become hungry for girls, but his appetite was driven by control, violence, and humiliation rather than any semblance of genuine connection or affection. For Harvey, girls were always seen as a different species altogether. When he was younger, he avoided them at all costs, which I mentioned, retreating into a world where they were alien, untouchable, and just incomprehensible. Harvey always felt inferior and inadequate in the presence of girls and women and avoided school dances and parties for this reason. Ophelia even indicated that Harvey used to literally cross the street to avoid walking past a girl on the sidewalk.
Wow, nervous.
But as he grew older, by age 12, that avoidance curdled into a twisted obsession fueled by a need to dominate, terrorize, and dehumanize them. Very young. This is like a big thing with Harvey Glatman. Everything happened before 18.
Wow.
Not everything. I stand corrected. Like not his most depraved acts, but all of the lead up.
The stage was set.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he began to spy on women as a peeping Tom, or creeping, as he used to call it, behavior that is disturbingly typical of a budding serial killer.
Yes.
Because voyeurism often serves as an early expression of a need for power and control and provides a sense of domination over unsuspecting victims.
Yes.
For individuals like Harvey, it became a gateway that escalated from passive observation to more active and dangerous forms of predation, which I can never say that right. But
You just said it right.
Oh, okay. As the fantasies grew darker and the need for control intensified, which is exactly what happened here. Because Harvey, a scrawny, gawky, stoop-shouldered high schooler.
Stoop-shouldered?
Yeah.
Damn, you went hard.
Sorry.
I don't even know what that means, but it sounds...
Stoop-shouldered?
Yeah.
You know, like... Picture somebody who's like tall and lanky and scrawny, but like they're hunched. They're stoop-shouldered. Their shoulders stoop.
Okay.
He began breaking and entering into private residences and stealing things, including women's lingerie and a 26 caliber 26 caliber handgun.
Caliber?
I was just trying so hard to power through it.
Put the emphasis on the other syllable.
Caliber. From there, he progressed from thievery to sexual assault.
Danger.
At just 17 years old, Harvey began following women home from various locations, breaking into their homes, tying them up, gagging them at gunpoint, because remember, he stole the gun, and then fondling their undressed bodies while he masturbated.
Jeez.
After assaulting these women, Harvey would then force them to cuddle with him, often while asking his victim to put on a sitcom in the background. One night in May of 1945, Harvey broke into the home of a woman named Elma Hammam after watching her undress through the window, thinking that she was alone. He was planning to tie her up, unbutton her blouse, and masturbate, which had become his new favorite fucked up pastime. However, Harvey did not realize that there was another woman in the next room who screamed upon seeing him before dialing the police. On the lookout now for an adolescent perpetrator described as skinny, jug-eared, and having a chipmunk face. This guy cannot catch a break.
But we don't want to bully him.
We don't want to bully him, but he does, warrant that later on. Police, of course, wound up finding the human rodent cowering in a nearby bush.
Even you?
I mean, they said chipmunk, they say weasel in some sources. He was cowering in a bush.
Yeah.
And I don't like him.
And you love rats.
I do, but he's no rat.
So your head just defaults right to rodents.
Yeah, it does. Needless to say, Harvey was arrested and charged with first-degree armed robbery after being caught with a rope and a gun in his possession. However, his ever-doting mother, Ophelia, promptly bailed him out on a $2,000 bond. There was no attempt at intervention, no treatment, no time in a juvenile detention facility, nothing to impose discipline or offer any chance of reform. It was just a massive, missed opportunity to address the growing darkness within him, which meant that his depravity not only continued, but escalated. Because just 1 month later, in June of 1945, while out on bond and awaiting trial for the burglary offense, Harvey stole another gun, this time a .25 caliber pistol, and used it to abduct a woman named Noreen Laurel. Driving his parents' car, Harvey lured Noreen from her Denver neighborhood and took her to a secluded area in Sunshine Canyon, setting the stage for yet another act of his terrifying violence. He forced Noreen to lie on the ground as he lifted up her sundress. Then he tied her hands and feet with rope and stared at her for a long time as she cried, screamed, and begged to be released. Interestingly, Harvey did not touch or fondle Noreen as he had done to his prior victims. Instead, he just watched her in a state of panicked hysteria, getting off so completely on her fear. The power he felt in those moments was far more intense than anything he had ever experienced hitherto.
Nice.
Noreen was completely helpless and Harvey was completely aroused. He left her tied up and sweltering in the summer heat for hours simply because he could, and it gave him more time to just watch her. Then that night he returned, placed Noreen back into his car, and drove her home. But before he let her go, Harvey...
After the date?
Exactly.
I'm going to take you home now.
Yeah. After
Crazy.
Putting her in the car, he stuck his gun in her ribs and warned her that if she reported the incident to anyone, he'd come back to kill her. But since Noreen had been gone for so many hours, her disappearance had already been reported, and she bravely identified her abductor from a series of mugshots, which they had because he was out on bond.
Mm-hmm.
Harvey was then easily traced by the Boulder Police Department and rearrested. And all of this happened before he even graduated from high school. While Harvey admitted guilt, Noreen refused to prosecute. So in December 1945, Harvey was convicted in Denver on 1 count of aggravated robbery and sentenced to 1 to 5 years in the state penitentiary of Canyon City. It just is what it is, guys.
Wait, you said she didn't press charges or didn't prosecute?
Yeah.
Then how did he wind up in jail?
Because the state still...
Oh.
Yeah. And incredibly, unfortunately, Harvey wound up getting released just after 8 months. So it's like even under the minimum sentence.
Oh, yeah.
Now back on the streets was Harvey Glatman, a young man who could not see women as people, only as objects of mystery and conquest. To him, they were not human. They were puzzle pieces to solve, trophies to claim, and fantasies to control. Violence became the only way to ensure that women wouldn't laugh, couldn't refuse, and would have to submit. Through force, he could rewrite the narrative in his head, proving to himself in the darkest way possible that he could take whatever he wanted, whenever he wanted it. And it always began with rope, because rope wasn't just a tool. It was a physical extension of his will and of his hands. Mm-hmm. Generally speaking, murder by strangulation tends to be personal. With the rope, Harvey could silence resistance, bind bodies, and break spirits with his own hands, and right? Because he's using his hands, and then the rope becomes an extension of that. Through it, he held the world in place and took what he believed was owed to him, the release of his frustrated manhood, the fleeting thrill of dominance, and the validation that he craved.
By the way, Boy Scouts, the amount of knots you learn in Boy Scouts is staggering.
Yeah, well, that's why I brought up that he was a Boy Scout.
Yeah.
Like he knew what he was doing with knots.
I don't know any knot except for the shoe tying knot. It's like the only knot I know.
Weren't you a Boy Scout?
Yeah, I don't remember anything.
On the one hand, the Boy Scouts teach you every knot. On the other hand, you have to remember it.
Well, if you stick with it.
Right.
Which I did not.
Yeah.
You know?
According to a psych assessment conducted when Harvey was previously incarcerated, a psychiatrist named Dr. Hilton diagnosed him as schizophrenic, or at the time, split personality. Harvey was described as sullen, morose, disrespectful, and felt that everyone, mostly of the female variety, was against him. Mm-hmm. And with that twisted perspective, Harvey, having been released early from prison, like I said, was once again a free man. And crucially, he was not being treated. He was not receiving guidance or oversight. His unresolved fears and twisted compulsions were just left to fester and grow unchecked. Mm-hmm. Upon his release, Harvey immediately moved to Yonkers, New York, where he took a job working for a local TV repair shop, which was a skill that he learned when he was in lockup.
For those of you who don't know the geography of New York, Yonkers is right next to the Bronx.
Yes.
Like almost considered the same neighborhood.
Thank you for that geography lesson.
You're welcome.
And of course, unsurprisingly, Harvey continued to be a rabid little chipmunk. Hiding in the shadows of city parks, he'd then crouch in shrubbery and wait for unsuspecting women to pass by.
Like a rat?
I said a rabid little chipmunk hiding in the shrubbery.
Chipmunk, I feel like, is maybe a little too cute for him.
They say he really looked like a chipmunk and or a weasel. Then, like the animal he was, but not the cute kind, he'd leap out, armed with a knife or a gun, to mug and terrorize these women in the park. For Harvey, the money or valuables he stole during his muggings were merely incidental. The real reward was the twisted thrill of watching sheer terror ripple across his victims' faces. He'd only take their purses home with him to keep as trophies so that he could use them to relive the panic he saw in their eyes when he took it from them. At the stroke of midnight on August 17th, 1946, Harvey targeted a young couple named Doris Thorne and Thomas Starrow as they strolled through a park. This was the first time. This was like a little break in his MO. But this next part is very much his MO. With a rope and a gun, Harvey swiftly tied them both up before turning his attention to Doris, his intentions chillingly clear. And this was the first time that Harvey actually attempted to rape a woman.
Oh, he crossed over.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He tried to. Because while this horrific act of sexual violence was unfolding, mercifully, it stopped short of forcible penetration because Thomas managed to free himself from the bindings. Fueled by desperation and rage, he launched himself at Harvey, disrupting the assault before it could even really, I'm not going to say before it can begin, because it began, but before he could penetrate.
Yeah.
What followed was a violent scuffle with Harvey slashing Thomas with a penknife that he'd been carrying. Bloodied but determined, Thomas retreated with Doris and forced Harvey to abandon his twisted plan and flee the scene. And by the time the police arrived, because they reported it to the police, Harvey had already boarded a train to Albany, New York, disappearing into the night.
Wow. I'll kick it off. Days later, on August 22nd, he set his sights on a new victim.
A nurse named Florence Hayden.
Okay.
Should we tell everyone why you just had to say that sentence?
I think they'll figure it out.
I struggled, guys.
Yeah. It took a 3-hour break.
So as Florence walked down Main Avenue in Albany, Harvey sprang from the shadows and shoved her into a yard. With a gun pressed at her side, he ordered her to stay quiet. True to his method, Harvey then pulled out the ever-present rope from his pocket and attempted to tie her up.
But this time, his Boy Scout skills failed him. It's going to be like this because she cannot get it together. So I'm going to, when she says a sentence and she can't get through it, I'm just going to pick it up and put it out there. So his Boy Scout skills failed him.
Oh, rub it in. You said it twice perfectly.
This time.
Because Florence, fueled by adrenaline and sheer willpower, wriggled free from the sloppy knots and made her escape.
That... I mean, I need that phrase somewhere in my life. Sloppy knots.
I'm just trying to diss him whenever I can.
I know, you're really fucking going hard on this guy.
I'm just trying to mess him up.
Yeah.
So Florence immediately reported the attack. I mean, incredible. Like, let's stop for a minute. She
freed herself
from the clutches of what becomes a serial killer. You know what I mean? She immediately reported the attack and described her assailant not only as dangerous, but interestingly, as someone who seemed more terrified than she was. Eventually, the quote-unquote phantom bandit made headlines because now he's
out there.
He's out there. He's in parks. He's tying people up.
So he's made 2 attempts and he's failed 2.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Like, why didn't he just quit?
In this context, right? In the park.
Yes.
So it prompted undercover cops to patrol the area because now they had this phantom bandit on the loose. And this is what ultimately led Police Commissioner James Kerwin and his team to finally capture Harvey.
Oh, they did?
They did. Pop quiz. When police apprehended Harvey, what did they discover? A, that the gun he had on him was just a toy. B, that he was wearing a floral print G-string. C, that he had an erection.
Toy gun. Floral underwear. Or
Panties.
What's a man? Manties.
I said G-string if you want to.
G-string. Or he had an erection. I mean, hey, let's go with C.
Nope.
A.
Yep.
Yeah. That was my first instinct.
Really? Was it? So during all of those muggings, Harvey had been wielding a toy gun because he knew that if he ever got caught, the sentence would be higher if the gun was real.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's that 130 IQ.
There it is. Harvey, who is now just 19 years old at this point in the case.
Oh, my God.
I know. Was handed a 5 to 10-year sentence. Because he was under 21 at the time, he was first sent to the Elmira Correctional Facility, which is a reformatory designed for younger offenders. However, he was later transferred to the infamous Sing Sing Correctional Facility in New York, which is a maximum security prison notorious for housing some of the most hardened criminals ever.
Yeah, Sing Sing's no joke.
It's no joke. While at Sing Sing, Harvey underwent a series of psychiatric evaluations. The results? A clinical shrug. Reports described him as not definitely mentally defective or psychotic, a vague and dismissive conclusion that overlooked the deeply ingrained behavioral red flags that Harvey Glatman had been waving for years. The lack of definitive diagnosis, while perhaps typical for the era's limited understanding of complex psychological disorders, dangerously failed to recognize or adequately address the violent compulsions already driving his behavior. And as a result of this oversight, if we want to call it that, after serving just 2 years, Harvey was released early again on good behavior in 1948.
God. He knows how to work the system, I guess.
Yeah, he's a good inmate.
Yeah.
And it serves him, and it keeps serving him. But he doesn't learn. I guess he can't help it because when he gets out, he just keeps going. When he was released this time, he was placed into his mother's care and kept under observation for 4 years as part of his parole conditions.
Wow, 4 years.
During this time, Harvey underwent evaluations by 3 different psychiatrists, all of whom diagnosed him as, quote unquote, a schizoid with deeply ingrained sadomasochistic compulsions. These were conditions they believed that offered little to no hope for recovery given the limited understanding and treatment options available at the time. Harvey's mental state began to unravel further after his father's death in 1952, marking a turning point in his downward spiral. In a desperate act, he sat in his father's black 1951 Dodge Coupe, parked it in the garage, closed the door, and started the engine in an apparent suicide attempt. At the last moment, however, he abandoned the attempt, stumbled out of the car, and breathed in fresh air. Not long after that, he purchased 100 sleeping pills with the intent to try again, but once again, failed to follow through. Living under his mother's watchful eye, Harvey's sadistic fantasies grew unchecked. Consumed by an insatiable need to dominate, harm, and control, he became desperate to find a way to satisfy his escalating and depraved urges. His urges are mounting, all right, which is how and when he discovered Irving Klaw's Nutrix, which was a New York mail order house whose specialty was providing photos and cartoons of barely dressed women, bound, gagged, tortured, and posed in humiliating ways. So Irving Klaw, self-named the Pinup King, was an influential Brooklyn-born American merchant of sexploitation, fetish, and Hollywood glamour pinup photographs and films. And once horny Harvey discovered Irving Klaw's work, he was shooketh.
Yeah.
He poured every cent of his earnings into his quickly growing collection of bondage and torture mags, which he kept under lock and key in a tool chest. Remember, he was working as a TV repair person.
Yep.
Yes, the models in the magazine were beautiful and varied, some blonde, some brunette, some naked, some not. But what they all had was a look of terror and pain on their faces.
God, he probably loved
And
that.
that was what Harvey craved above all else.
I feel like I've seen a look of terror on someone's face maybe once or twice in my entire life.
Oh, it's
And
traumatizing.
I hated it.
It's absolutely traumatizing.
Yeah. So, like, jarring.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, you're wired well.
Well, I'm well wired.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with this newfound love for models being tortured and posing for photos, Harvey made a decision when his parole was up, and that was to move 1,200 miles away to Los Angeles, California, home of models, actresses, and other potential prey looking to have their photos taken. Harvey packed up his $500 worth of torture photos, as well as his treasured ropes, cords, and gags, got into his father's shiny black Dodge, and drove out to Hollywood.
Well, that answers the question that we always ask about people who are in situations where predatory behavior is more common, right? Did they just fall into it because it was around them all the time, or did they enter that profession because they wanted it?
Right.
Like he entered the profession.
And
sure.
I usually am inclined to believe that in most cases, they go into the professions where they have sort of this access to their, not kink, that's not the right word.
To their victims.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Harvey, consumed by years of pent-up rage against women, simmering through his time behind bars and under his mother's suffocating control, merged that fury with his escalating obsession for bondage and torture magazines. And this volatile mix drove him to craft a far, far more sinister outlet for his depravity. Taking up photography, Harvey devised a chilling scheme to lure unsuspecting women into his trap. And that was to pose as a professional photographer seeking models. So by day, he worked as a TV repairman, but by night, he transformed his rented studio apartment on Melrose Avenue, nestled in the heart of LA, into the stage for his twisted plans. There, he set up a dark room and equipped himself with I can't pronounce this, but Rolleicord camera, a flash attachment, floodlights, various lenses and filters, and a tripod. Instruments that seemed to bring light, but were born of darkness.
I'm whistling a lot.
Yeah. I was proud of that one. Because for Harvey, the camera could serve as his shield, something he could essentially hide behind as a tool to create a false sense of control and detachment as he manipulated and dominated his subjects.
That was his mascot costume.
What do you mean?
It was that time I dressed up as an Easter bunny and I felt like the king of the world.
Yes, exactly right.
Yeah.
It allowed him to mask his insecurities, projecting power through the lens while dehumanizing his victims into mere objects of his twisted fantasies. Behind the camera, Harvey wasn't just an observer. He was the architect of terror, orchestrating scenes that fed his need for control and his insatiable appetite for fear.
I know new listeners are like, what did Tank just say? He felt what? Like, because he dressed up as an Easter bunny? I can't tell the whole story again. If you know, you know. If you don't, basically, I just felt great because nobody could see my face.
He dressed up as an Easter bunny for Easter.
I danced for 4 hours straight.
And he felt incredible because he was just anonymous.
Yes.
So now that Harvey had all his professional equipment, under the pseudonym Johnny Glenn, began to offer his services to models of the mainstream pinup and or fetish variety, all looking to have their photos taken for money. And all of whom remained unaware of the 7.65 millimeter Italian-made Beretta automatic being concealed in the paws of their chipmunk face photographer.
Wow. Again, pause.
It was just in there and I left it. I made a creative decision on the spot, even though I said I wasn't going to do it again.
Because you think chipmunks are cute.
Right. So I have a hard time.
Yeah.
But it's like when you're so immersed in the research and all you're seeing is this chipmunk weasel.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it just sticks.
When in Rome, you know?
Did you say Rome because it was an Italian Beretta?
No, that's the saying.
I know that's the saying, but I was wondering if that was in your head.
When in Rome, eat the cheese.
I love cheese.
You're a rat.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Now, Harvey's plan to tie women up and photograph their faces in terror did not exactly go as planned initially, because many of these women were consenting. For example, the first woman he hired after seeing her provocative ad was not only cooperative with Harvey as he tied her up, but she liked it. And she kept calling him daddy and instructing him on how to tie her up just the way she liked it.
And that's not what he's looking for.
Exactly. He wanted fear. He needed resistance. He needed unconsenting women being traumatized. So he switched gears. Enter his first murder victim, 19-year-old Judy Dull. Judy was going through a custody battle for her daughter and decided to model in an effort to pay off the court bills. On Thursday, August 1st, 1957, Harvey contacted Judy through the modeling agency she worked with and informed her that he was going to pay her $50 to photograph her.
Oh, he's paying them?
He's paying them, right. He's saying, I need models. I need these pictures taken. And then they're, in need of money and they're signing up.
Job, yeah.
Right. He instructed Judy to wear street clothes, which was a cashmere sweater and a short skirt, and told her that they could even shoot at her apartment if it made her feel more comfortable.
Is it a Quince Mongolian cashmere sweater?
Maybe. Of course, when Harvey arrived at Judy's apartment, the lighting was all wrong. So he politely offered to take her back to his apartment rather than canceling the gig, and she'd be out of money. Very clever strategy.
Yeah.
Once back at his place, Harvey explained to Judy that the photo shoot included bondage for a special magazine job that he was hired to shoot for, and that he would need to tie her up. And what happened after that is only based upon what Harvey later explained, because sadly, Judy Dull was never seen alive again. Harvey took out his gun as he tied up Judy, unbuttoned her sweater, rolled her stockings down, and proceeded to photograph her fear as he trembled with arousal. His hands were sweating and his mouth was dry as he took off his own jacket and gagged her with a cloth. Harvey shot half a dozen poses of Judy on a chair with her hands and feet bound and her clothing in various states of disarray as he stripped her down. When the photo shoot was finished, Harvey then lied Judy down on the ground where he proceeded to fondle her while waving his gun in her face. She even got a bloody nose as she attempted to fight and squirm her way out of the restraints, but it was useless, and Judy remained very much incapacitated. Harvey then removed the gag from Judy's mouth, at which point she proceeded to spill out her life story in an effort to appeal to her attacker's human side, which is so heartbreaking. She explained how she had a 14-month-old daughter who needed her and how she promised not to go to the police if he just let her go. But that didn't happen. Instead, Harvey raped Judy twice. At around 10:30 p.m., Harvey indicated to Judy that he was ready to let her go and that his plan was to abandon her in the middle of nowhere. He tied her wrists again and led her out to his car by gunpoint. Then he drove 100 miles southeast outside of Los Angeles near Thousand Palms under the pretense of letting her go. But once they arrived, Harvey lassoed Judy's neck, pushed her down onto her knees, hog-tied her, and then pulled on the rope until she was dead.
Jesus, dude.
He then removed her shoes and clothing, fearful that they contained his fingerprints, and drove straight back to L.A., discarding the items at several points along the way. Judy's body was eventually discovered 4 months later on December 30th, 1957, in a shallow grave 4 miles from Indio, just off the highway. Animals had scavenged her remains, making identification very difficult for law enforcement. And in spite of the fact that Judy's roommates had reported her missing and had even described what the photographer John Glenn looked like, Judy Ann Dull would only be known as Jane Doe for several months, as Riverside County authorities mistakenly believed that the unidentified skeletal remains belonged to a woman around 30, 35 years old. And she was younger, Judy, so they just kind of never made the link. After that, Harvey laid low for a bit. He grew a mustache, stopped wearing his thick horn-rimmed glasses, and kept a low profile. He'd had plenty to keep him satiated with all the photos he'd taken of Judy on the night of her assault and murder. Photos, which you can see I don't recommend, but he takes photos before he does anything to them, tied up, looking terrified.
Yeah, I don't want that.
Yeah. When his appetite crept back in, he hired 2 sex workers to tie each other up, which proved unsatisfying given, again, that they were consenting, which caused him to develop an all-consuming hunger that devoured every ounce of whatever humanity existed, which was none. Harvey Glatman needed to feast like never before, and he was out for fear-filled, terror-laced prey. And that is where we're going to end part 1.
What?
Part 2 is really fascinating. We are going so deep into the psychology and criminology of Harvey Glatman.
Yeah.
And we're going to go on, obviously, to discuss the rest of the poor, beautiful women that he brutalized. And the conversation we're going to have about his criminal mind is deep. So that comes in part 2. But I wanted to lay the groundwork in part 1.
I feel like I feel how the people listening feel right now.
Which is?
I don't want it to stop.
Oh. I never want it to stop. I could do this all day, every second of every minute.
Yeah, this is like a real jolting stop.
Oh, I should have finessed it a little, maybe.
No, it's not. No, it's
Okay.
not. It's like you did such a good job of building it up. Like I just want part 2 right now.
I know, it's crazy because it's so much happened when he was so young.
Yeah.
And like, spoiler, what happens next all happened in such a short time frame.
Yeah.
With him. So it's like, it's just wild. Like you would think that, I don't know, the level of his like sickness would just linger and happen for years and years. Thankfully it didn't.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. It's his criminal mind is interesting. He's disgusting. What he did is not interesting, but
yeah, terrible.
Very. Take me out of this headspace with a Tank's titty, please.
It would be my pleasure.
Okay, great.
So it's just something I've been thinking about, and I don't have an answer for it.
All right.
Okay.
Let's hash it out.
Yes, I'm interested to hear your take on it. Talking about weather is boring. Talking about religion and politics is like in bad taste. So they say, even though that's all anybody talks about anymore. You're not supposed to talk about other people because that's gossiping. What are you supposed to talk about?
Serial killers. True crime.
Got it.
Psychology. Law. Criminology. I can keep going.
Okay, very good.
That's why I'm not so fun at a party.
You gave me an answer. You know, it's like, it's the opposite. Like there's this tweet that went viral many years ago. Some young, starry-eyed person's like, I just want somebody that'll sit on a balcony with me and talk about space.
What?
Yeah, it's like, okay.
Do ya? Do ya, kid?
They think they do, but then it's like, all right, we're done with this conversation, right? Like, what do we talk about now?
Right.
I don't really know a lot about space. It's interesting. It's big.
So big.
So big.
Oh, you went up, I went wide. Okay.
Yeah. But I'm just at a loss sometimes. I also do feel like I'm trying to speak less in more situations than not.
For what reason?
I just feel like I burn it all out when I talk about it. Like I burn all the energy out. Like there was this guy I heard say years ago, somebody was telling him, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to blah, 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 blah. This may be the Tank's titty. And the guy was like, I'm hearing a whole lot of what you're going to do. Why don't you do one of those things and then tell me how it went after? Like intentions, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Because the actions are really all that matter most of the time. Intention is cool, yeah. If you have a good intention and you do a good thing, great. But if you have good intentions to do nothing, it's almost worse than doing nothing.
Yeah.
For you, as the thinker of I'm going to do this good thing. And the first thing I thought of was like someone saying that they're going to start going to the gym and they tell you on Saturday, they're pumped. They've made a decision. They tell you, you know what, dude? I'm going to the gym Friday. I'm going to start. And then the friend goes, that's great, man. Good for you. I'm so proud of you. I hope you do it. Sunday rolls around. They don't think about it at all. Monday rolls around. They're like, I kind of already got the thing I was looking for.
Yeah, you got the validation. You got the slap on the back.
Yeah,
the pat on the back. Yeah.
I don't need to go sweat and be out of breath.
Yeah, saying you're going to do something is not the same thing as doing it.
It's not, but it's a poor substitute because you do get some.
But maybe for people who actually follow through on things, it's the first step and it's necessary.
I don't know. I just find the more I say I'm going to do something or the more I divulge, like I need to keep some things for myself now. They say in the meetings, you got to give it away to keep it. I got to keep a little bit.
Keep a little bit.
I got to keep some.
Close to the chest.
Close to the vest.
Chest.
Chest?
We go back and forth on this one.
I think I like close to the chest.
Yeah, that's why I said it.
Yeah.
But then you said vest, and then I felt weird.
Couldn't remember. So anyway, yeah. I'd be interested to hear what people say about what they talk to other people about, unless it is just those things.
I think parents talk about their kids, right? I got nothing.
Yeah, politics.
I talk about cash a lot. I talk about dogs a lot. I talk about animals a lot.
Yeah.
I talk about this podcast a lot.
And listen, I also want the stigma to be removed for talking about the weather.
Yeah.
I want to say it's cold. I know it's winter. I've been through 44 of them. I get it. It's not a surprise, but it is fucking cold.
Say it.
And I want to talk
Say it and mean it. And I'm here for it.
Yeah, it's hot. Yeah, it's hot.
Yeah. It's something we can agree on.
Yes.
So it's actually a nice thing to do.
Excellent takeaway. Excellent takeaway. It's setting some kind of standard of like, hey,
Common ground.
Common ground, establishing common ground. Talking about weather is establishing common ground. And anybody who says it's boring to talk about weather, you're annoying.
Boom.
Sorry.
Boom.
I want to establish common ground with a stranger. Imagine you said, oh, it's so hot and it was 100 degrees out and someone was like, no, it's not.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Wimp. You guys are hot? I'm from Puerto Rico. This is nothing to me.
Oh, I mean, I've had those conversations too.
So have I. And I do kind of believe them because when we went to Puerto Rico, it was like 80 degrees. I think I had a sweatshirt on.
No, Ugg boots. It's like Florida. People have Ugg boots on when it's like 75.
It was like, whoo. God,
I have
so
a
cold.
tank top and flip-flops at 75.
And I'm sweating.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. So that was a little roundabout, convoluted thanks titty, but I think it came out straight.
All titties are appreciated and beautiful.
Yeah, I agree.
Right?
Yeah.
So come back for part 2, everybody. Part 2 is going to lay it all out. It's going to crush. I think it's for me, it's like what I love most about true crime.
If you made it this far, first of all, you're a real one. Second of all, you got to listen to part 2.
Yeah. You got to come back.
Yeah.
See how this wraps up.
Well, thank you for doing all that work. Thank you.
Truly a pleasure.
Thank you for laying it out so succinctly and clearly and concisely.
Thank you for your brilliant contribution. Per usual, UJE.
Of course. My pleasure. It's my pleasure to do this as you do that. And we do this.
Very good.
Whatever, man. We'll see you guys at the next episode.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.